Hey everyone, welcome back to the Jay's Fit Down podcast. I'm your host, Jay and Gay. Once again, here to discuss with you guys. So we're done with the NFL Combine. Now we're headed really into free agency as far as the NFL is concerned, offseason, all those good things. So I'm going to be going over the past couple of deals that have gotten signed by two quarterbacks in the NFL that recently, Derek Carr and Geno Smith. We're going to be discussing that, my thoughts on that, plus Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. They've been having discussions. We'll get into that and here as well, and also teams that must hit in the 2023 NFL Draft. We're going to get into those, and I'll give you guys my picks on that, and let me know what you think in the comments as well. And yeah, that'll pretty much give us our show today. But before we get started, make sure you guys check us out on YouTube here on the channel, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You will find us there at Jay's Fit Down. But yeah, so we're done with the combine. It was great. A lot of great prospects to watch out there. They have one offensive lineman, Terrence Achilles, so prayers out to him. I forgot his name exactly, but prayers out to him. Hopefully he'll get better. But great, really impressive combine. Just the quarterbacks were great. The defensive backs, receivers, the offensive line, running backs. Just impressive by all position groups. Uh, Over the combine. Very impressive. And I thought it was really good to see that. And yeah, now we're done with that. We're going to be moving into free agency officially as we head to next week. I believe it's the 15th is when free agency officially opens up. So teams will be able to start discussing contracts and deals with free agents, of course, and we'll be happy to see how that turns out for a lot of these ball clubs. But what I wanted to get into today was Derek Carr. This has been a hot topic throughout the offseason the past couple of months, in that he leaves Las Vegas and he got cut and he wanted to leave there, and now he was searching for a new home. A lot of people thought he might go to the Jets and this and that, or Carolina or whoever, or the Bucks. But no, he ends up going to the New Orleans Saints for a 4-year, $150 million deal, guaranteed money through 2024. So this is going to be interesting for Derek Carr and the Saints. The Saints, of course, had a top 10 defense. They all usually have a top 10 defense every single season, and I'm sure they're going to continue to attack that in the draft this year as well. Just continue to add to that position, to those position groups on the defensive side of football. You got a top 10 pass rusher in Cameron Jordan, and Marshawn Lattimore when he's healthy is a top cornerback, and and Demario Davis still holding down the middle of the field, so that the defensive side should be covered. Offensively though is where I might see a little bit of concern for the Saints. You don't know what's happening with Michael Thomas. We don't know. Like I'm not sure what he's a very cryptic person, to say the least. I don't know if he's gonna come back to New Orleans or if he's going to leave. We don't know about that. It's just like it's up in limbo right now. So. But other than that, yeah, Michael Thomas, your receivers. Chris Olave had a great rookie season. He was a great pick for them. So that's really your number one guy. If Thomas doesn't return, Marquez Callaway. I really want this. Well, I say this as an analyst, not a Falcons fan, but in my analyst mode, I got my analyst cap on today. Let's pretend I have my analyst cap on right now, not my Falcons cap. But from an analyst standpoint, from an analytical point of view, the Saints need to hit on the wide receiver in the draft. That's what they need to. They need to get a wide receiver, another wide receiver, maybe in the later rounds or so, maybe round 3 or 4. Just to kind of just to add depth to that position, because right now it's just not as consistent as you want it to be. Callaway was okay. Chris Olave obviously was huge. Then Thomas, of course, played the first couple of games of the season. Then he, and we had a couple of players that kind of made some plays here and there, like Rashid Shaheed, definitely a guy they're going to keep around. He's talented, but you need to get a receiver in the draft for New Orleans. Definitely a receiver, maybe a running back even. Kamara. We don't know what's going to happen with that situation there. So it's a lot of things to go for the Saints. But this is a much better situation for Derek Carr than the Raiders. The Raiders defense pretty much lost them a lot of their games because they gave up leads that they had. Not to say that Derek Carr performed out of this world, but he put up decent numbers and he had a decent season. for what the overall roster was producing, especially on the defensive side of the football. And then you didn't have that much consistency at the wide receiver position under Devontae Adams. So, that's another thing. And then you go to New Orleans here. Dennis Allen, of course, is old head coach when he was with the Raiders in 2014. Now he's in New Orleans as the head coach. You get Derek Carr over there. There's that connection, that chemistry they have. I really believe that this is a good move for both parties. And Derek Carr, this is his chance this is his chance. You're in an NFC division where it's not really complete and built yet. Like the Panthers and the Falcons and the Bucks are still just wading their way through the water here right now. The Saints, if you look at it on paper, really had the most talented roster in the NFC South of all the other three teams. So, in theory, they really should win that division next year. I don't see any way they don't. Now if let's put my Falcons cap back on here. um, I don't want that to happen, but just looking at that, Derek Carr, he's a veteran quarterback. He's been in this league for 9 years. He's been there. He's done that. Been to the playoffs a couple of times. He in one season he was top in the MVP voting. So this is a guy who's been around the block. He knows what he's doing. He's got a very solid roster around him offensively and defensively. And they're only going to continue to improve. As we move along the offseason here. So. And then, so you got Carolina, got a new head coach and pretty much a new staff there, and they're trying to figure themselves out. And Tampa Bay, the same deal. Brady's gone, so now you need somebody to step up at quarterback, and it's not going to be a magical fix like that. It's going to take time for that to happen. So so that's going to be something to keep an eye on. So really, this is the Saints division to lose. Now that is in the case that the Falcons don't go out and get a star quarterback like Lamar Jackson or something, which I don't think they'll do, because if you throw all your chips in on one marble, you can't you can't spread that out throughout to the team, the positions that are of need for you. So that's the big thing. We'll talk about that in a second when we get to the our later part of the script. But I think this is a good move for Derek Carr. I think he made the right decision. And if he would have went to the Jets, that'd have been a good pick too. That'd been a good thing too. But I think New Orleans suits him better. And, plus they got that rowdy fan base, and it's kind of similar to Vegas, and it's New Orleans, and they got good food down there. So all that good stuff, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. We'll get to see Derek Carr twice a year now. So, but now we move on to Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets, who have Rodgers has received permission to begin discussions with the New York about a trade, and they have been doing that. There have been conversations had between both parties, Aaron Rodgers and New York. At this point, Green Bay is like we're going to trade him if that's what he wants to do. We will trade him there. If not, then whatever. But I just want this to be done. I know I probably speak for all Packers fans when I say this, but I just want this whole stuff to be done. Get Aaron Rodgers out of Green Bay, please, 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 because every offseason, it's the same story every year. They lose in the playoffs, or they don't make the playoffs, and he comes out, he goes in a little darkness retreat, or he goes, on a Zen trip, or he's just hiding away, or whatever the case may be. I don't know. Aaron Rodgers, he's just he disappears from the light of society until he figures out what he wants to do. Then he's just holding the Packers by their necks here, just kind of dragging them along with him. It's time they cut the cord, let him go, trade him. Just relieve yourself of all that stress and unnecessary stuff that Aaron Rodgers has been causing this organization for years. Just let it go. Because they haven't done anything since that 2012 Super Bowl against the Steelers. And they want to get back, but in order for them to do that or make their way towards building the steps towards accomplishing that goal, then you have to get Aaron Rodgers out. Just cut that cord completely off. Rip that Band-Aid off. Get rid of it. It's like a scar, just rip it off, get rid of it. That's my opinion on Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. I think it's time for that to end. And the Packers. I think it's Aaron Rodgers and the Packers need to end. And he needs to go to the Jets. And they got a good defense. If Brees Hall comes back healthy next year, you got a solid running back. They're all young. Most of those players on rookie contracts, and Sauce Gardner on the defense side of the football. He's a top corner, and it's just a great situation. Now they just had some little miscues here and there, some different situations situationally that they need to work on as an organization. But if they get those things figured out, you add in Aaron Rodgers, who knows? They will be competing. As they were a season ago. Just the quarterback play was atrocious from Zach Wilson. So, but that's just my whole thoughts on the Rogers saga. So we'll see what happens in these next couple of days, next couple of weeks. Like I said, free agency officially, like you'll see a lot more stuff happening like the next couple of weeks because next week is usually when that period will open up, and you're gonna have players signing here and there, and trades are gonna start happening. So another thing to keep an eye on, Jalen Ramsey too. I forgot to mention this. So there's been chatter like the last couple of weeks that him and the Rams might part ways. They might trade him. I mean, you know, depends on where you stand on Jalen Ramsey. I mean, he's a top cornerback in this league. I know he has had some hiccups and ups and downs, but what player doesn't? I mean, every player that happens to every player. Jalen Ramsey still is top corner, and the people that say he's, like he's falling off or he's not good anymore, and now they know good and well if they were a head coach or offensive coordinator calling a game against the Rams, you wouldn't be throwing the football on Jalen Ramsey's side of the field. And then you wouldn't. I'm just gonna put that nugget out there. I don't even throw to that side of the field when I play Madden. I do not throw Jalen Ramsey's way because I know he's gonna pick it off or make a play on it. Because he is a really good corner. He's a Pro Bowl corner. He's a Super Bowl champion. I mean, and the Rams right now are in a stage where they're like, you want to say rebuilding, but like kind of like I don't know what they are right now. And so that's gonna be something to watch out for. Um, you know, it's just going to be really interesting to keep an eye on. Our next segment here is the teams that must hit in the 2023 NFL Draft. And on my list, I have you guys can let me know what you think. You can give me your teams, but for mine, I have the Steelers, the Falcons, the Vikings, and the Bears. These are just four teams that just automatically come to my head like right off the top because they absolutely need to hit. Their windows closing like it's mandatory that they hit for their relevance in the NFL as a franchise. First off, the Steelers. You get Kenny Pickett. Had a solid rookie season. They started off a little shaky. They got in the groove a little bit later on. As a team, the offense was kind of atrocious, play calling wise, and as they start to shift throughout the end of the regular season, in 2022, they started to figure things out, right? And so I'm looking for that to kind of boil over into 2023, and see if they can continue that. But what's important for them is they have to have a great draft next month. They have to. It's like there's no question. You have a quarterback on a rookie deal. So that means you're going to have it's not like you got a guy that you have to pay, right? You don't have a Jalen Hurts, a Patrick Mahomes situation or whatever. Justin Herbert, like you don't have to pay this kid. He's on his rookie deal. So that means and Cam Hayward's on his last few legs of his contract too. He's getting up there. He's in his 30s. Like you need to get that defensive tackle positions filled. They need to get out there. I think they need to draft a defensive tackle. I think they need to get you definitely need to get a cornerback in the draft too. They need to get a cornerback. I mean, there's a couple ways the Steelers could go. You could go for a wide receiver. There's a lot of talented ones in this draft. They got Pickens last year and everything, and Deontay Johnson's a great player, but we don't know like what's going on with his contract, so everything like that. So it's just gonna be. I just want to see how they do this. You need to get a receiver, you need to get a cornerback, and you need to get a few defensive pieces here and there, like in like round 3, round 4, round 5, because it just needs to happen, and also a left tackle. I would like to see them get Broderick Jones from Georgia for that left tackle position. That's another position that they need to solidify is that offensive line because the offensive line did not play very well last year, so you need to bolster that up. So I definitely think the draft will be a good place to attack those specific positions for Pittsburgh, and just continue to improve their roster. I mean, like just getting one step closer to winning a Super Bowl. The more you improve your roster, the more you get better, the more that you're getting one step closer to winning a championship, and that is what is important. That's the ultimate goal of all these teams in the NFL is to win a Super Bowl, and it all starts here. It starts here all season scouting, the combine, the NFL draft, and as training camp, mini camp, season. Like it's all starts here. Football is year round. There is no off season. I mean, everybody that plays sports out there knows there really is no off season. Especially football. I mean, I played football a while myself, and there is no off season. Yeah, once the season's over, you're back in the weight room. You're getting ready. You're doing your winter training. And then you got spring practice coming up in spring, right? And so you guys got a lot of colleges doing getting ready for spring practice pretty soon. So like that's or they already started, right? So and then summer workouts and summer training, and then you get into fall practices, and now the season's here. So football is a year-round sport. There is no off season. There is no time off. It's always important to stay ahead of the game. And especially in the NFL. And so for the Steelers, that's important. Same thing for the Falcons. They end up with the same pick as they did last year, the eighth overall pick. They got Drake London out of USC. He had a solid rookie season. I mean, the quarterback play. We don't need to get into that. Marcus Mariota. That situation speaks for itself. However, I do believe that with the eighth pick, the Falcons seem like they're all in on Desmond Ridder right now. They seem like they're all in on Desmond Ridder. They think he's the guy. Arthur Smith thinks he's the guy. Terry Fontenot thinks he's the guy. They had him sit a year under Mariota until he had to come in and play 4 games, and he played all right, for a rookie. And so now you're going to put him out there this year. I would say, see what he has this year. Put him out there, just throw him out there, see what he has. If you don't like what you see, then you take a quarterback next year if you're the Falcons, or try to make a swing for one of these other star quarterbacks in the league. The whole Lamar Jackson thing, like, look, that's not going to happen. The Ravens aren't going to trade him unless, even if they do, Atlanta, like, you're in a situation like, don't throw all your chips in on one thing, on one dude. Like, Lamar's great, but he's had some injury issues, sometimes a little inconsistencies with his passing mechanics, things of that nature. Like, the Falcons cannot afford to put themselves behind the 8 ball here. They've been doing that their whole existence as a franchise. They can't afford to do that again, especially under the Thomas Dimitrov era. They've been putting themselves like they've been regressing and putting themselves behind the 8 ball, going backwards instead of forward. You can't do that. You have to move forward. So you have to be smart. You can't throw all your chips in on one thing, and that they can't do that for Lamar. So that's my take on the Falcons. I say get an edge rusher. They need an edge rusher. They need a cornerback. They need a receiver in the draft. And a defensive tackle. Those are your top positions of need for Atlanta. And they need, and there's a lot of good prospects out there for that. They need to hit on that in the draft. They absolutely must hit. Next team up for me is the Vikings, Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota, they had an interesting season. I had Luke Braun over here from Locked On Vikings to talk about that a few episodes ago. You guys can go check that out if you missed it. But he mentioned that cornerbacks, they need cornerbacks. They need they need defensive backs back there. Patrick Peterson's most likely on his way out, unless they bring him back. Andrew Booth, those guys that kind of struggled a little bit back there. I want to see him go after the top one of these cornerbacks. You got Rodriguez from Oregon. It's a lot of other good prospects out there that I think they should take a look at. And it's just I just think Minnesota too. Like, yeah, get a linebacker too. I would look into the linebacker market, offensive line. Definitely need a receiver. Zay Flowers is out there, very talented, tremendous speed, great route running. He's got that blistering speed. Something to add to that Vikings offense with that Kevin O'Connell is calling. So I think that would be a great fit for them. But I digress. Those are my positions of need for Minnesota. And then you move to Chicago, the team with the coveted number 1 pick. We don't know what they're going to do with it. Are they going to trade it for, are they going to trade back for it? Or are they going to draft somebody with it? Maybe a Will Anderson, or who knows? I don't know. They're not taking a quarterback. We all know that. So, and it wouldn't make any sense for them to. So most likely they trade that pick. They trade back for it. You go after, I definitely would go after the edge rusher. Go after some offensive linemen again, and a receiver, please, for Chicago. Chase Claypool. you need a receiver. You get Darnell Mooney some help. Because Equinemius St. Brown and Chase Claypool are not a good supporting cast for the Bears. They weren't this past year, and they won't be in 2023. They got to get a stud out there at the receiver position to complement Darnell Mooney because clearly he's your number one guy. But but Brown and Claypool haven't really proven themselves to be that yet. Claypool had one good season, which was his rookie year, and he hasn't really he's just been just kind of troping through. You need absolute production out of that position group. Not just from one guy, but everybody. So I say go after receiver if you're the Bears, go after the edge rusher, some offensive linemen to protect Justin Fields, and a running back too. If you're not confident in Montgomery, because he has some injury tendencies, so that's something to keep an eye on too. But as far as my NFL teams that must hit in the 2023 draft, that'll do it for me. And last but not least, Smith signs a 3-year, $105 million extension with the Seahawks. He threw for 4,282 yards, 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. And I mean, he led the NFL in completion percentage, and the Seahawks went 9-8. They went to the playoffs, lost to the 49ers. Everybody knows that, But overall, for what happened in good season, because everybody thought they were going to rebuild after they traded Russell Wilson away. And I could firmly say the Seahawks definitely won this trade. They ended up with the fifth pick in the draft, made the playoffs. I mean, that's a win. If you're Seattle, given your situation for your roster, and I mean, yeah, absolutely. The Seahawks win that trade, and you lock up Geno Smith for the next 3 years. Now, that's not to say that they won't still draft a quarterback. I think they should, obviously. They're most likely going to keep Drew Lock as a backup, like they did this year. So, I just hope they get production out of Geno Smith this year, and they're hoping that too because you lock up a guy for that much. I mean, for mostly a career backup, like. And he had a good season, but is one season enough? We'll see. Time will tell with that. We will see how this all plays out once we get into the next season. But personally, I think I mean, it's a move that if you're confident in, if you're the Seahawks front office and ownership, then you do it. You pull the trigger and you do it. We'll see what happens with it. I mean, you guys let me know what you think. Was it a great move for them to extend Geno? And let me know what you think in the comments. But that'll pretty much wrap us up for today's podcast on Jay's Fifth Down. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, make sure you check us out here on YouTube and on every podcast platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all those great stuff, all those great things. Check us out there. Make sure you subscribe. And once again, I'm your host, Jaden, and we will be back here. Catch us next time for our next episode, and we'll see you guys later.